Hello everyone, welcome back to episode 6 of my beginner's playthrough of Kerbal Space Program 2's exploration mode. As you can see, we are here at the Kerbal Space Center, and here is where we are in terms of our current progress through the R&D facility. So if you missed the previous episode, you might be wondering why I no longer have the atmospheric science node unlocked, and that's because I had some weird bug where my save file got wiped, so I had to speedrun through the whole game again to get back to where I was, but I somehow ended up with slightly fewer science points than I did the first time. So we're a little bit short, but it's no matter. We should be able to gain a bunch of science back this time because, as you can probably tell from the title and thumbnail, we're going to go to Minmus. That's right, we have the bad signal mission. I've already tracked it, but this requires us to orbit a probe with a communications antenna above Minmus because Mission Control is picking up static over Minmus. It's a weird signal. Now I'm going to go ahead and assume, not done this mission before, but I'm going to assume that once we do this objective, it's going to put a landing marker somewhere on the surface of Minmus for us to land at because it's the origin of this strange signal. So we're going to actually kind of maybe not do this mission as intended. We're actually going to send a full-on rocket to Minmus with a probe core, because it says orbit a probe, and it needs to have a communications antenna as well. And then once we've established where the signal is coming from, we can then just land and do what I assume is going to be the next mission that pops up once we do the first bit. So, first things first, let's go ahead and build our rocket in the vehicle assembly building. So, I don't know if we need to have a probe core, but the mission did say orbit a probe. So let's just err on the side of caution and have a command pod and a probe core. So we're definitely going to fulfill that part of the mission. Next up, we're going to add a heat shield as always. Then, that's too big. We want the small decoupler. And then we're just going to add one little small FLT 400 fuel tank. Minmus has got very low surface gravity, so this is actually going to be sufficient for our lander. And we're going to add some landing legs. 1, 2, 3, 4. Beautiful. And then, I forgot. Before you add that, we need the Science Junior, because of course we want to use this opportunity to gather as much science as possible, because that's how you unlock stuff in Kerbal Space Program 2's exploration mode. We're going to add 4 solar panels as well in symmetry like that, and a couple of batteries as well, just so that we can maintain power even in periods of time where we don't have access to the sun. The solar panels are being lit by the sun. That was a weird way of phrasing that. That's our landing stage. Now we're going to add our transfer stage, which is going to be 1 FLT 800 fuel tank. This is probably going to be a bit of an overkill rocket, but again, I'm sort of aiming this series at sort of beginner players, so you've got lots of extra fuel to use in case you kind of don't do things as efficiently as you could. That's going to be our upper stage. Now we're going to build the rocket that gets it to 2 orbits. We're going to go 1, 2, and then we're going to add old faithful swivel engine. Does this have good thrust weight ratio? Let's see. No, 0.2. So we kind of need some supplementary boosters for this first stage. We're going to add a couple of radial decouplers like so. And in fact, actually, it's better practice to have them this way round. This way, well, I'll explain later, but basically, it puts the boosters in a better position for when the rocket's in flight. I will elaborate on that when we get to the flight. Then we're going to add another couple of FLT 800 fuel tanks to the sides like this. Then we're going to add the Reliant engine. Reliant is a bit more powerful than the swivel, but it doesn't have thrust vectoring, which allows you to steer your rocket. So we need at least 1 swivel engine for the core stage. Now I'm going to offset these down a little bit until we can't anymore. Until the nozzles of the Reliant engines are just slightly below that central swivel. Now we need to strut this thing together to, reinforce. We're going to have some struts like this, and then we need some fuel lines as well. So the fuel line will make this vehicle even more efficient. So what this will do, if I can just go I like lining it up nice and neatly like this. So this fuel line means that when all these 3 engines fire, they're only pulling fuel from these tanks. And then when these tanks detach, we'll have a full fuel tank in the center because this fuel line is pumping fuel into the center core to keep the center core fully fueled, basically. With that out of the way, we're going to add some nose cones to make sure they're pointing in the right direction. And just to ensure we get safe separation of our side boosters, separatrons there, separatrons there. I'm kind of going through the build a bit faster than I have in previous episodes because at this point I'm assuming you kind of built a few rockets before, so, don't need to go through anything as painstakingly as I did the first time. Let's get that nice and low. And then we'll add some launch clamps as well, just to keep this thing nice and stable when it's on the pad. And now, I'll tell you, that looks pretty good for our rocket. Oh, actually, I forgot the other thing, didn't I? We added the probe core, but of course the other thing the mission required of us was to add a communications dish. So let's just add one there. Make sure it looks okay when it deploys. Maybe like that. Perfect. And now, that's a good. We need to just sort out our staging now. So we're going to put the launch clamps in one stage. We're going to make that the second stage, actually, because when the engines fire for the first time, they won't be at maximum throttle right away. Then we're going to add all of the 3 engines here into one stage and get rid of those separatrons, put them in the same stage as the decouplers. And then that's looking good. So these go, then the clamps, then the side boosters, and that, then this, then this, then this. That looks pretty good. Let's call it Minmus Rocket. Why not? And yeah, there's nothing left to do now except paint the rockets. I'm going to just time-lapse through this part of the build because you don't need to watch me painstakingly select a color scheme and paint the rocket. And you can choose your own colors. You know, this is one of the more fun aspects of the game. Doesn't really require a great deal of skill, so no need to go through it kind of in a tutorial sense. But there is our beautiful rocket there. I think it came out very nice with that nice purple center core. And with that, it's everything's finished. We've checked our staging, so now it's time to go ahead and launch. Just before we do launch, though, you might recall I said put the boosters on this side and this side, rather than this side and this side. And the reason for this, you'll see when we go to the launch pad, we're going to be launching east, i.e., this way. And we want the boosters to be left and to the right of the core, rather than above and below, so that when they separate, they're going to fall away nicely. There's no risk of the top one just falling down, hitting the core. The separatrons should prevent that from happening, but we want to try and minimize risks whenever we can. And we got 5 science points by doing our experiments on the pad. Isn't that nice? Anyway, let's just skip the countdown, right? There go the engines. Now we can release the launch clamps, and off we go. We're off to a flying start because we have a pretty good thrust weight ratio actually on this rocket. So once we're between 300 and 500 meters, we can start our gravity turn, aiming towards the 90-degree vector on the nav ball. I'd like to be pointing about 45 degrees angle in terms of the amount we're tipped over. So basically where the number 90 is on the nav ball by the time you hit 10 kilometers in altitude. We're actually accelerating very fast, aren't we? So we can reduce our throttle a little bit. Let's go to, that's a nice number. 75, 3/4 throttle sounds good, because you don't want to be going too fast this low in the atmosphere, because you're going to be wasting a bunch of energy just fighting the air resistance rather than putting any meaningful power towards your ascent. So this looks like a good amount of throttle. In fact, we're probably still going a little bit too fast, but I can't be bothered. Now, I'm trying to keep my white crosshair of the nav ball sort of within the green prograde circle, just to minimize the amount of drag that we're generating against the air resistance. And in fact, I said aiming to be 45 degrees by 10 kilometers. I actually undershot a little bit just there. We're going to be hitting that 45 degree mark a little bit later, but it's not a big deal. It's only a bit of a rough guidance, really, and it's better to be hitting 45 degrees after 10 kilometers rather than before. Now, we've nearly run out of fuel of those side boosters. We can throttle up again, ready to anticipate losing some power. There we are, and we can stage, and those separatrons push them away nice and safely. Now we're going to keep an eye on our time to apoapsis, which is 43 seconds, so loads of time at this point. So we're going to carry on our gravity turn. Probably want to be pointing about 30 degrees on the nav ball by the time we hit 25 kilometers. So we're tipping over to a much more gradual pace at this point. There we are, just gradually tapping D, making sure the white circle again stays roughly in the prograde circle to minimize the amount of drag that we're generating. Let's go between 30 and 20, so maybe 25, which actually is right within that center of the prograde marker. And I think at this stage we're fairly low still, relatively, and so there's still lots of atmosphere up here. Great, very great phrasing. So we don't want to be pointing too flat at this point, because we'll end up just accelerating really, really quickly, like getting to a high speed in the air, and we'll generate loads of thermal heating and be very, very inefficient. So let's just hold this angle for now. We'll watch the time to apoapsis. Once this gets to about a minute, we can start pointing flatter, but for now, I'm pretty happy holding this angle here. I think what we'll do is we'll just time warp through this part of the flight just to kind of keep things moving at an acceptable pace, So as you can see, our time to apoapsis is over a minute now, and our apoapsis is very high itself. So we gradually start tipping over a little bit, but again, we are still relatively low. Like, I don't want to be pointing too flat until we're about 50 kilometers at least. So we're just going to gradually tip over very slowly, reaching our prograde marker. And we have flame out, so let's stage and activate our Terrier engine, and then not a lot of rocket left, is there? But this is going to be enough to get us all the way out to Minmus. And look at that, apoapsis is nearly in space. So at this point, let's just point prograde and watch that number. Let's go for a nice clean, what should we say? Let's go with 80 kilometers, giving us 10 kilometers of space between the atmosphere and where our apoapsis is, to give us plenty of time to perform plan a orbital burn and then execute said orbital burn. And there we are. Apoapsis is now in space. I think I'll just speed the footage up again until we reach the point at where our apoapsis is 80 kilometers. Good phrasing there. And there you go, 80 kilometers. I'm pretty happy with that. We're nearly in space. Let's just make a quick save, just for safety. And we'll wait for that number, the altimeter, to reach 70, which went within the vacuum of space. There we are. Now we can open up the map screen. And we can destroy this piece of debris. This is a remnant from when I did my speed run to Minmus. I wasn't really paying much attention about not leaving debris in space because it was all about speed, getting back to where I got to before. So it's actually good to make the maneuver slightly before you wrap up this point. And let's see, periapsis there, 78, 81. I think that's good enough for me. Then we can press, maneuver on your auto SAS control panel. And then we can just time warp to our maneuver. In fact, let's just override that, be a bit faster. I'm very impatient. There we go, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then we can just do that burn. Use a bit of time warp, get through it, because at this point you should have done lots of missions to orbit at this stage if you are following along, so shouldn't need to explain this in too much detail for you. And here we go, waiting them to swap. That looks good, brilliant. Let's just check actually, 78. 82. Don't know why I did that. The information's down here. Now, we've been to the Mun before. Now we're going to Minmus, which is much, much further away. However, I think it's kind of a mistake that this game asks you to go to the Mun first rather than Minmus, because although Minmus is further away, it is much, much easier to perform a landing on because it has much, much lower surface gravity. And you can kind of tell that it's an easier place to reach because look how much smaller my rocket for this mission was compared to the rocket I used for my Mun missions, which was considerably bigger despite the Mun being much closer because the Mun is a bigger celestial body. It has higher gravity, so you need a bigger rocket to kind of do missions there. So the challenge with Minmus is you can see the Mun's orbit is pretty much equatorial around Kerbin. And so you can get a maneuver, or you can make a maneuver plan to get an encounter with the Mun pretty trivially. Minmus slightly different, as you can see. It's at a tilt, which can make things a bit more complicated. But do not worry, it's, I already selected it. Right-click it, press, let's just clear it. There you go. Right-click it, press set as target. Then you kind of want to draw a line from Minmus to Kerbin. And then about 45 degrees behind Minmus, that's a good place to... it's not 45 degrees, sorry, 90 degrees behind Minmus, so kind of like here, roughly. Let's try and get that a bit better, so it actually lines up with what I said. Can I grab this maneuver? Or sometimes it can be a bit finicky. There you go, that's about 90 degrees, isn't it? And then we're going to drag on ProGrade. We should get a little target indicator up here if I've done this correctly. There we are. So we've got some target markers. We're not quite there yet, though, so now we can grab the center of our maneuver plan and see if we can get our target to line up. There we go. So yeah, that's about 90 degrees. If I draw Minmus, then 90 degrees behind it, that's basically there. Oh, or in other words, in this case, it was along our our ascending node. So let's have a look at where we are. So we can right-click and press focus, and as you can see, we're in a nice orbital line. We can now just modify our maneuver plan to get that perhaps just a little bit closer. So I'm pushing on the ProGrade marker there. Now that looks pretty good. Now we actually, in this scenario, want to be on an eccentric orbit because I don't know where the landing site is going to be. So we kind of want to be in a higher orbit around Minmus and at a slightly tilted orbit. That means that it's going to be easy to land basically anywhere on the surface, whether or not the landing site we need to get to is on the pole or whether it's on the equator or one of the Minmus flats. Having an eccentric orbit like this will make things much easier. Now, I must stress that if you're doing like your first ever Minmus trip, I wouldn't do this. I would just try and go for a straight Minmus landing, maybe even ideally... Oh, I've lost my focus on Minmus. There we go. Ideally going for one of these big flat areas here, the Minmus flats. Very, very forgiving places to land on. You're not going to tip over. So I would aim for that. But, if you've done your first Minmus landing, then you want to, expand your horizons or, challenge yourself, then you can play along with this mission. And hey, you can use this mission as a guide to get to Minmus and do a Minmus landing, but not worry too much about, landing at the very specific site that the bad signal is going to tell us to get to. Now, we've got just enough fuel in this stage to reach Minmus, which is good, and then we'll have enough fuel in the remaining stage to perform our Minmus landing, and indeed, leave Minmus and get back home. I'm going to use a bit of time warp at this point, actually, just to speed things up so we can get to Minmus itself. There goes our orbital line. It will start shooting up. It will speed up exponentially in terms of how quickly our apoapsis increases. Oh, there we go. Just killed our time before we end up overshooting a bit. And there we have it. I think I've actually overshot a little bit, haven't I? Yes, so we've overshot. Let's just point in the opposite direction that we were. So we're basically pointing prograde, weren't we? Sort of. So let's just point retrograde, and we should then be able to bring this line back to where we wanted it to be. That's a good place to start burning. And there we have it. That's pretty good for me. 86 meters per second remain in this stage. So, nothing left to do except do a bit of time warping and get ourselves to Minmus. I'm actually using the map screen because it makes it a bit harder to accidentally overshoot. When you change sphere of influence in this game, sometimes there can be a bit of a lag spike, and then when the lag spike ends, you can end up like being massively overshot. So let's just keep time warping, doing some danger time warping. There we go. Now we're in the sphere of influence of Minmus. We can create a maneuver plan. Will it let me? Please, please let me create the maneuver plan. There we go. We're going to retrograde. And are we going to run out of fuel? Yeah, we are going to run out of fuel during this burn, unfortunately. So we are going to leave a bit of debris in space. Oh, no. But, you know, it's fine. You can destroy spent stages in this game. And if you're a beginner, then I wouldn't worry too much about Kessler syndrome and all that. It's not real. At least in the game, because you can destroy spent stages, so it's fine. And there is Minmus. Minty thing. Minty celestial body. Now, doing a burn at this altitude is less efficient than burning closer to Minmus because of a thing called the O-berth effect. But honestly, it doesn't make that much of a difference because Minmus's gravity overall is very low. So the O-berth effect isn't too much of a thing here. Now, we're actually entered Minmus's sphere of influence. We're in space high above Minmus. We can run our science experiments and then we can stage because we've run out of fuel in that stage. There it goes. Goodbye. And then we can watch the map screen and wait for ourselves to complete our circularization. There we are. Now, we can have it. We've technically done the mission, which is do the bad signal mission, but let's just try and pretend we've done it properly. We can extend that antenna. And whoa, boop, boop, beep, beep, boop, boop. We're doing some scanning. Boop, boop. That's what our thing does when it's scanning. Right, let's just make a quick save and go to mission control and see if we did it. Bad signal. Aha, submit. Gotcha, over and out. Thank you, science. Aha! Just as I predicted, we have the Minmus monument. So, mission control detected a new signal on the surface of Minmus. If we want answers on the structure we found on the Mun, we'll need to uncover what's down there. Find the source of the mysterious signal. So we're going to track that. That, in theory, should put a marker on our map screen to tell us where to land. We have some new bonus missions as well. Little Chonka. Land a vessel on Minmus with a current mass of over 200 tons. Well, I wish I had known this was going to be a mission that would pop up prior to doing this, because then I could have added some chonk to our lander. But ultimately, it's only 35 science points. This is a pretty negligible reward, to be honest. Geostationary orbit. I'm going to assume that means reach geostationary orbit, which we need to cover in this video. So let's go back to the tracking station and resume. So this is the tracking station. As you can see, we have the yellow target there. It's actually incredibly polar, isn't it? So I guess I needed our orbit to be even more eccentric. Had I known this, I would have just gone for a polar orbit rather than a tilted orbit. But you know what? It's fine. We can just take the delta V hit to do an inclination change. That's another bonus, really, of having a very high Minmus orbit, is we can do inclination changes relatively cheaply. Now, at this point, we're very high up, so Minmus is going to rotate quite a bit underneath us. So let's just do an initial burn. And, we're actually... Oh, well, am I time warping? I didn't think I was on time warp. That's weird. Anyway, I think we're there, aren't we? So let's just do that burn. And right-click Minmus, press focus. We're going to be basically getting... So we're kind of ahead of that target. It's going to rotate this way, remember. Account for Minmus's rotation. So here we go. Oh, actually, not really, not done that very well, have I? But I wonder if we can see it from orbit. Aha, there it is. So we can just do some, this is the camera spinning around because we're the camera doesn't really know what to do because we're so polar. So let's just do a small adjustment burn along the normal vector just to deflect our course that we're definitely landing at that landing site. So here we go. Just going slightly overshoot again to account for the fact that Minmus is rotating underneath us. Then we can click orbit here on our nav ball, so it's using the surface as its guide. I'm actually going to retract this antenna as well. We can press G to deploy our landing gear as well. Before, of course, performing another quick save. Now I'm actually going to ignore the retrograde and just point along the horizon line because I want to kill off our horizontal velocity before we start worrying about killing off our vertical velocity. Now, Minmus, very low gravity, so although the Terrier engine has quite low thrust-weight ratio, it'll still do things relatively quickly because Minmus's gravity is low, if that makes sense. So here we go. We're going to kill off our horizontal speed, trying to more or less now get us on a trajectory that takes us onto the signal target. That looks pretty good there. Now we can actually eyeball it because we want to be going a bit more this direction, don't we? So along the 270 marker looks good. Just a small little puff. How are we doing? Look at that. We probably don't want to be landing exactly on it actually because it looks like there's a bit of a sketchy central bit. Doesn't it? Okay, so now we're coming down at an acceptable target. We can just time warp a bit. As you can see, our surface velocity, we're not accelerating very fast because Minmus has, again, low gravity. So again, we're actually now... my rocket just disappeared. So let's just burn retrograde to kill off our speed. Because it'd be nice if we can get a little bit close to the target, right? So let's just kill our speed to make things easier. There we go, almost done. Now let's point towards it, make sure we deselect retrograde or auto SAS. Not ideal that we're coming down in such dark conditions, especially because this is like going to be a video that you guys can follow. But don't worry about getting exactly on the target like I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to, you know, put on a good old show for you guys. You can obviously just land next to this thing and just walk your Kerbal over, or use the EVA pack to make this a bit easier. I'm just doing this for style points, you know. Now, it would be really helpful if I could actually see what I'm doing. But luckily, it looks like this monument emits its own light source. So this is helpful. So I'm going to have to use instruments to do our landing, aren't we? So we're going to use, make sure this is set to ground, not C. You can click that purple toggle there. And I want to be, ooh, is there something here? This is actually really sketchy. So let's just kill off all of our speed to like 0. And then point retrograde. There we go on auto SAS. And just watching this ground marker. I'm just going to keep our speed below 5 meters per second until we just come to a natural, gradual touchdown. Then we can just time warp this, but we can just speed the footage up just to save you guys the boredom. Actually, before touchdown, let's just run some experiments. You can get samples in space near to Minmus. And it looks like we've now touched down, which is great. It looks like I'm falling over. It would have been really nice if this game wasn't so dark. Luckily, Minmus's gravity is very forgiving again, so it doesn't really matter that we're on our side. We can just use SAS to reorient the ship. Can we time warp so that we're actually in the day? There we go. And now we can get a good look at this monument for the first time. Wow, I couldn't have picked a worse landing spot, could I? Let's see if we can just get ourselves in a better position. Look at this. I'm just using SAS, and it's just absolutely the dream. Oh, there's a big old statue there. Look at that. So this must depict a being that constructed that mysterious golden monarch that we found on, you know, the Mun. Or do I try land in its hand? What do we think? No, let's not get too blasé with things. Now I did run the experiments. Yep, not let me run anymore. So I guess that was done okay. And then just for touchdown, we can just burn off all of our speed. Look at this. That is a big old monument, isn't it? And let's just pretend that that's the canon touchdown in this video. I landed in the day, and you know, well, I didn't land on like a massive slope. Now we've done all of our science right, but it's still flashing. That's because we have to go outside. Something many gamers will strike fear in the heart of many gamers, but not us. We are brave explorers. Let's collect a surface sample from this little area here. So we're gonna touch down. Right-click Valentina, and we're going to press Run Surface Survey. Just going to grab a trusty test tube, and look at that strength. Drag it through that solid concrete there, or indeed whatever this monument is made of. There we are. And now, oh, actually, I'll tell you what we can do. We've got to plant our flag, most important thing. Mint. I don't know. Perfect. Might make a quick save here as well while she's doing that. Perfect. Flag glitched out, showing the default flag rather than our custom one, but that's okay. Let's get Valentina back into the ship. Now, it might be worth, while we're in Minmus... Come on, Valentina. There we go. While we're on Minmus, let's go back to mission control and see if there's anything else we can do while we're here. So let's just hand in our Minmus monument contract. So let's see. Terry Kerman, welcome back, Director, blah, blah, blah. How does it relate to the Kabola system? Luckily, we've already decoded the message. They found a rhythm, thanks in no small part to the jazz instructor. You'll need a translator to thank her, though. She only speaks in jazz hands. Right. Oh, I didn't read the first bit, did I? The figure looks like a little like a Kerbal, but what's with the squid mouth? The message says, bear witness to her brow, where two entwine through gravity. Bear witness to her influence, which saved us from calamity. 6 times the heavens circled, once freed we did not stay. Bear witness to the goddess, Kabina lights the way. Crazy that the translation rhymes somehow, right? Regardless, right? So basically they're going to give us a new mission. Let's just, oh, look at that. Mission complete. What does it mean? Juno Monument. Well, looks like we're going interplanetary for our next mission there. We'll track that. That's going to be next video, I suppose. Little Chonka. Oof, can't do that. Go to geostation. We've done that. And Orbit Kerbin with this fuel tank. So we can kind of do these two, I guess, in one, right? We'll launch our fuel tank and send it to geostationary orbit. Maybe I could put wheels on it, get that one. And yeah. Anyway, looks like we can't do anything else on Minmus. So we're going to go back to the tracking station. And where is our rocket? Control. And there we are. Now, we're not going to go home straight away. I want to get a bit more science out of this mission because I was cheated out of so much science when my save file was lost. So, let's just burn straight up. And then, I don't know, let's go this way. I want to land basically on the edge of this crater so that we're in a different biome. My camera's messed up a bit, hasn't it? If this happens, press home on the keyboard and that resets the camera center. So let's see. Let's get our map screen here. And we want our orbit line. Oh, our orbit line's disappeared. Fantastic. Well, let's make a quick save. See if we can fix this through quick saving. It's still glitched. So should we load a previous one? This is going very well, isn't it? Right, let's try that again. So we're going straight up. Aha, we have an orbit line. Whew, that was stupid, wasn't it? So, we're going to make a quick save. We quick loaded to a point where, at a point in time before, I handed the mission contract in, so we'll have to re-hand that in. But to be honest, it doesn't matter. We can just wait till the mission's over at this point now. So, we're going to point retrograde relative to the surface. As you can see, our trajectory is taking us outside of the crater, which is what we want. Then we can just time warp. Now, time warp on Minmus is very frustrating because we're limited to just the first 3 notches, which you can see is very painfully slow. And you've already seen that Minmus is pretty forgiving in terms of how much engine power you have. Like, your thrust weight ratio is always pretty good because Minmus's gravity is so low. Looks like my batteries have decided they want to depart the vessel. That's my battery, right? Well, there's the batteries there. I don't know what this is, basically. We've had a bit of a visual glitch, haven't we? But I daren't do any quick loading and quick saving at this stage. I want to just get back to the ground and not have any glitches. So let's just speed the footage up so you guys don't get bored to tears, right? And I'll just edit this together later on. So I've once again selected a horrible landing site. This looks very, very hilly. This is why I suggest, like, for your first Minmus landing, to aim for like those big flat areas, the Minmus flats, because there's no undulations in the surface. You can't really mess the landing up. Like I have. Although, maybe we can land. Let's try and steer ourselves to that flatter region. It's so silly. That glitch is like casting its own separate shadow, isn't it? Okay, where's retrograde? Let's just point retrograde. I think this is looking much more promising in this little divot in the ground here. Perfect. Oh, no. There we are. Beautiful. Now we have new science because we're in a new biome. We are in the Minmus snowdrifts. Perfect. Excellent. And of course, whilst the Science Junior... whilst the Science Junior is running, we can get Valentina out. And she can perform a surface survey. There we are. She can grab out her trusty test tube once again. And grab a sample. There we are. Beautiful stuff. Now it's time to get back in the ship. So let's get our EVA pack out once again and find the hatch. There it is. Now, do I do a quick save to try and fix this visual glitch? Let's not. Don't want to risk it. Let's just go straight away. Let's just point 90 degrees on the nav ball because that's with the direction of Minmus, which is therefore the most efficient way to orbit. Although again, Minmus, low surface gravity, doesn't really matter which way we go. Now, where's our apoapsis? Good, we still have an orbit. So let's just, that looks fine. I've actually gone way overkill there. I will make a maneuver plan in orbit to circularize, and then we can think about getting back home. Now again, we've only got 500 meters per second remaining, right? Which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's really not going to cost us that much fuel to get home, because the bulk of our, delta V change, well, that's a bit of a redundant. The bulk of our change in velocity is not going to be done with the Terrier engine. It's going to be done by, slowing down in Kerbin's atmosphere and using our heat shield. So that's going to be why we don't need that much fuel to get back home. Again, we can just time-lapse this bit of the footage because I'm still locked to the first 3 levels of time warp this close to the surface of Minmus. We have more time warp available to us now. Excellent. So let's just continue time warping now until we get to our apoapsis point, and then we can circularize. And there's one of the big Minmus flats, by the way. So you can see how much easier it would be to land in a flat spot there because, I've overshot. It's just one giant flat spot, basically. And there we are, we've circularized. In fact, I overshot slightly. There we are. So let's make a quick save and think about getting back to Kerbin. Now, hopefully, we land in the sea. So I get the buoyancy mission. I'm not really going to be aiming for it like anywhere specifically. So, if we don't get it, it doesn't matter that much. Now, I'm just trying to get our Kerbin periapsis to be as low as possible. Though, as you can see, because we're in basically a polar orbit around Minmus, we can't really get our Kerbin periapsis to be that low, to be honest. So let's just got to get it reasonably low and relatively equatorial. For no other reason, it just looks nicer on the map screen. It's only going to cost us 72 meters per second this burn, so let's just time warp ahead and do it. Still quite slow, so let's just speed the footage up in post. Okay, we're now at the maneuver, and I realise now that I wasn't pointing in the correct direction. Let's just click surface, actually, change our nav to be back to orbit mode, and then we can perform that burn, which is not going to take us very much time at all. There we are. Now we should be on an escape trajectory. Yep, so let's just now time warp. Should get some more levels appear as we get sufficiently far away from Minmus. Now, my memory is fading. Yep. We've already got science from high above Minmus, so that's fine. Now we're in orbit of Kerbin. If we want to be super efficient, we could time warp to our Kerbin apoapsis. But really, we have enough fuel to just do our retrograde burn from here. So we're going to point in retrograde. Make a quick save as well, actually. Point in retrograde, then we'll do a burn. And we'll just wait for our periapsis to be within Kerbin's atmosphere. We can actually go on the map screen and focus. And we can watch it by eye. Here we go. Now, the heat shields in this game are very good, so it doesn't really matter. We don't have to worry about getting our periapsis too low, basically. Let's go for... so there's 70, so now in the atmosphere, let's go for 20. That sounds good. And that's it. Now, at this point, shall I try and fix that visual glitch by doing a quick load for my sins? This could be how everything goes wrong. Let's see. That looks pretty good, actually. Nice. Okay, we're fine. So now I'm just going to time warp down to Kerbin and perform our re-entry. Don't want to be time warping too fast as you approach the planet because you can sometimes just time warp through it. And then we'll do... we've run out of electric charge somehow. This is no good. How have we run out of electric charge? The sun is right there. But I have solar... we have 1 unit of electricity. I'm not quite sure how this happened. So now we've got to keep this stage attached as long as possible just so we don't run out of power. So I'll turn off SAS. And we can just gain some electric charge. 14, that's fine. Let's just stage. And we'll just point retrograde, and then we can just turn off SAS. We run out of electric charge once again. But it's fine. We don't need it. We don't need electric charge to stage our parachute, so we should be okay. Famous last words, I know. And there goes our parachute. We don't need SAS at this point. It looks like we are going to be splashing down in the ocean, so maybe this time I can finally get the buoyancy contract. I mean, we're so far down the tech tree at this point that it's going to be a negligible amount of science, but it's more the principle, And splashdown. There we are. So now we can press recover vessel, confirm, go back to the KSC, and we can just time warp to the day as well, make the next mission a bit nicer. Although, that being said, we're going to have to do some time warping before our next launch. If you know, you know. Okay, there we go. Let's go to mission control first. In fact, let's make a quick save first of all. Let's go to mission control, and once again, hand in Minmus Monument. Done. We already did all this. Yeah, you guys have seen this. Thank you so much. And yes! Aha! The buoyancy mission. We can now hand that in as well. 40 science. Nice. Let's quick save now and go to the R&D Center. So, as we already mentioned, our next mission is going to be going to Duna. So, we probably want some things to help us with that. Namely, it would be nice if we could get atmospheric science, because Juno has an atmosphere, so we can research its atmosphere. And then it doesn't really matter, because at this stage we've got all the key things we need for a Juno mission, so we can just unlock some stuff for basic quality of life. So precision machining has got some nice parts in there, but it also gives us medium payloads, which gives us a medium fairing. There it is, which will be useful. I think it might be good to get landing utilities as well. So we have lights, so we can avoid that darkness problem we had in the last one. And heavy landings, because we have this big lander can here and a big landing engine, but the current landing legs we have available to us aren't actually long enough to extend beyond the engine bell of this poodle. So let's find the bigger landing legs. There they are. 673 science left. So that can give us 1 or 2 more nodes. Let's see what we have. I think maybe we could unlock nuclear propulsion. That'd be quite good. And that's it. We've only got 23 science left. So that's basically where we're leaving off in today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it, guys, and get ready for the big Juno mission. Where is it? In fact, let's have a little look. Whilst we'll find it whilst I show off my Patreon supporters on the left of the screen there, who make all of this content possible. And there is the yellow spot on Juno that we're aiming for. So kind of a tricky area, as it's now covered up by the end screen cards. But hey, there might be a video on there that looks good to you. They're both on my channel. In fact, one is probably the playlist for this playthrough series, actually. So it's only one video, but hey, maybe it's a good one. And yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video once again. Leave some comments below, and if you liked it, then leave a like as well if that's what you know.